Right guys, we are very much getting into the business end of this January transfer window now. We've had a few more deals go through in the last few days and the transfer rumours are seriously starting to heat up. So as always, I want to get your guys' verdict on everything going on in the Championship in the comments down below. What have you made of your January business so far, and are you hopeful of getting some more signings through the door? As always, make sure to go ahead and leave a like if you do go on to enjoy. Also go ahead and check out the TikTok as well. Started posting regularly over on there. But without any further ado, let's first of all hop into some completed deals. We finally saw Hull getting a deal over the line for Malcolm Ebiowei, joining on loan for the remainder of the season from Crystal Palace. Hull have done really well to strike this deal. There were several other Championship clubs who were interested in the move for the youngster, but I think in the end it was Liam Rossini's relationship with the player that probably went ahead and swayed this one. I'm a big fan of him. I think he'll add a different dynamic to this Hull squad for the second half of the season. We also saw Rotherham completing a loan deal for Brentford winger Tariq Fosu. He spent the first half of the season out on loan at Stoke. Didn't have the greatest of times there, although the Stoke fans did see glimpses of quality from him, and I think that in the situation Rotherham are in at the moment, it's absolutely imperative that they go ahead and play the loan market well. I definitely still think there's a good player there in Fosu. Get him high up the pitch, playing in the final third, and he can go ahead and influence things. Obviously we saw him make his debut against Watford at the weekend. And we saw Burnley completing a deal for Helmar Ekdal. He's coming over on a 4.5-year contract for an undisclosed fee. The Swedish central defender is coming over from Sweden. We thought that Burnley might have been in the market for another defender, and once again another example of them playing the European market here. Blackpool have got a loan deal over the line for Brentford defender Charlie Good on loan for the rest of the season. This coincides with the news that Rhys Williams is returning from his loan spell at Blackpool and heading back to Liverpool. Blackpool definitely in need of cover in this position, and we'll speak later on in the video about some of the other transfer targets who they have identified in this position. Good's an interesting one, was really highly rated at Northampton, then made that move over to Brentford, and since doing so hasn't really played all too much football over these last couple of years. Certainly a good player in there whose potential is still perhaps a little bit untapped. It's just about keeping him fit, given that lack of match fitness maybe over these last couple of years. And we've seen Watford completing a loan deal for Benfica forward Henrique Araujo on loan for the remainder of the season. 21-year-old has featured and scored in the Champions League this season, certainly comes along with a lot of pedigree, and I mean at this point we're quite accustomed to seeing Watford playing the European market, but Araujo certainly comes with a massive reputation from Benfica, and generally speaking so far this season the forwards that Watford have had at their disposal have all been fairly hit and miss, with maybe the exception of one or two. So someone like Araujo I think is a really exciting addition for the rest of the season. And we've seen Todd Cantwell completing his move over to Rangers. We did mention this one in the previous transfer rumour roundup. It felt like this move had been on the cards for quite some time in terms of Cantwell looking for that fresh start elsewhere. He wasn't going to be part of David Wagner's plans, and to be fair, that forward three that Wagner has gone with so far has been working with each other really fluidly and effectively so far. It just feels like for the sake of Cantwell's career he probably did need this fresh start somewhere else, and maybe like, you know, a club like Rangers will be a good place to get the best out of him, because he's still only 24 years old, so really young. He's not played all too much football over the last couple of years for Norwich. Obviously this season in and out of that squad, 9 starts, 9 appearances off the bench, and I think in the long run this move to Rangers could be a really good one for him. But those are some of the deals that we've seen go through in the Championship over the past few days. If I've missed any out, make sure to get them in the comments down below. But without any further ado, let's hop into some transfer rumours. Starting out with the Iliman Ndiaye interest from Everton. The Sheffield United star man has been in fine form this season. I think Blades fans were expecting Premier League interest to come around the corner at some point. 10 goals, 7 assists, more successful dribbles than any other player in the Championship up until this point, and at 22 years old as well. It was obvious that the Premier League interest was always going to come at some point. Now, the saving grace for Sheffield United fans is the fact that Fabrizio Romano recently reported that it seems as if the plan is for Ndiaye to stay around at Sheffield United until at least the end of the season, and that will be music to the Blades fans' ears. He's absolutely central to the way in which they set up under Paul Heckenbottom, and barring any massive slip-ups in the second half of the season, Sheffield United look bound for the Premier League at the moment, and the same can't quite be said for Everton, who there's a massive possibility could be playing in the Championship themselves next season. They've had plenty of turbulence recently. It's no surprise they're looking to add more firepower into that squad, being one of the Premier League's lowest scoring teams so far this season. But with it looking as if Ndiaye will be sticking around, that's massive news for Sheffield United, albeit a tempting bid of 20 million plus could come in, and then who knows what could happen. Leeds United forward Joe Gelhardt really has the pick of the Championship clubs, as several teams are all chasing his signature to tie him down for a loan move for the remainder of the season. For some time it seems as if Wigan have been the front runners in this race, obviously Gelhardt previously coming from Wigan to Leeds United. However, several clubs further up the Championship food chain are also interested in securing his services. The likes of Stoke, Coventry, Blackburn and Swansea all interested in the young striker, and it seems as if he'll speak to each of the clubs this week and go ahead and make his final decision. Some massive figures surrounding this one, because reportedly Middlesbrough are eyeing up a £4 million move for Charlie Cresswell. Cresswell currently out on loan at Millwall from Leeds United. It does remain to be seen whether or not Leeds themselves would be willing to sanction a full sale with Cresswell. I'd say progressing fairly steadily along in his Championship career with Millwall. Obviously started the season in that Millwall side but has lost his place more recently. We've seen under Rowett Millwall switching between a back three and a back four. More recently they've opted for that back four, and their preferred partnership at the back has been Hutchinson next to Cooper, and so ultimately Cresswell hasn't had that many opportunities since the turn of the year. Certainly got an eye for a goal though. 4 goals and 1 assist from centre half so far this season. Still really young at just 20, but 4 million, a hell of a lot of money. And Van Hecke from Brighton is another defender who Middlesbrough have on their watch list at the moment. Obviously we saw the centre half previously out on loan at Blackburn, where he did a tremendous job there. Has had a few first team opportunities so far this season, but they've ultimately been fairly few and far between in the Premier League. Only had 1 start this season, 1 appearance off the bench, then a couple of appearances in the Cups as well. But yeah, given Borough's situation at the moment, a signing like that for the rest of the season would be absolutely huge. Last time on the Championship transfer rumour roundup, we spoke about Watford being interested in Ben Whiteman. Well, it now seems as if there is some Premier League interest, at least that's been reported recently, with Fulham interested in the move for the North End midfielder. It's a tricky situation we've got with Whiteman at the moment. He's now into the last 18 months of his contract, with that set to run until the summer of 2024. I think a lot of Preston fans, myself included, have been hopeful that we get him tied down to a new long-term contract, but if that Premier League interest was to be there, and the figures being quoted at around about 5 million, I think it is money that ultimately we couldn't go ahead and turn down. In terms of Whiteman, I'd say our most consistent performer, makes us tick, really tidy player on the ball. I do have a few question marks over whether he is dynamic enough off the ball to properly make it in the Premier League. I think it is still a little bit of a vulnerability within his game, sometimes to not shield those spaces in and around him, and sometimes to be a little bit static in those positions at getting back. But there's no doubt that he has, deserved a crack, perhaps at Premier League football, with how consistent he has been for North End recently. And I'd hope that if that sale was to be sanctioned, we'd go ahead and reinvest some of that money into the rest of the squad. It looks as if Hull City are closing in on a deal for Newcastle goalkeeper Carl Darlow. Obviously with Nathan Baxter now out of the picture because of that injury and him returning to Chelsea, they are in the market for another goalkeeper and someone to come in and rival Matt Ingram for that number 1 spot. And someone like Carl Darlow would bring a wealth of experience, to be fair. He's not played all too much football, only 9 appearances for Newcastle over the last year and a half, but is a very well established goalkeeper who's obviously been a fantastic shot stopper in the Championship in years gone by, and still only 32, which is still relatively young for goalkeepers. Speaking of goalkeepers, another who could be on the move is Neil Etheridge from Birmingham. His opportunities for Blues this season have been fairly few and far between, with John Ruddy the established number 1 there. He has had some chances to impress in the cup competitions though, and did make that ridiculous triple save the other week against Forest Green Rovers. The clubs said to be interested in a potential loan deal are Stoke and Huddersfield. Huddersfield obviously contending with that Nichols injury at the moment, and it does seem as if Stoke are in the market for an established Championship goalkeeper. Last time we spoke about their links to Daniel Bentley, for example. It does seem as if Liverpool youngster Calvin Marvin Ramsey could be heading out on loan for the second half of the season as well. He's only had a couple of appearances for Liverpool up until this point after making that move over from Aberdeen in the summer. The Scottish right back has been linked with a move to both Watford and Swansea, which could be good for him. Mick McCarthy might be getting the band back together at Blackpool, as they've been linked with a move for Stoke City centre-half Aidan Flint. Flint's been pretty out of the picture for Stoke recently. He's not featured for them since October. Along with Blackpool, Derby County are also said to be interested in the experienced centre-half, obviously. Flint and McCarthy know each other well from their time at Cardiff, and I mean, he is a typical Mick McCarthy sort of guy, isn't he? 6'6", towering centre-half. Is no longer at the peak of his powers, I think it's fair to say, but to be fair, I said that last time when Blackpool went ahead and signed Richard Keogh. I didn't think that was an amazing signing at the time, and he turned out to be really good. I do think that Blackpool are in need of an experienced centre-half. They've really been missing someone in that Richard Keogh role this season for me, especially with that Hecke injury and Williams going back from his loan spell. Someone like Flint could provide some value in the second half of the season. Another defender who plenty of clubs are interested in is Burnley centre-half Luke McNally. Does seem as if Burnley would be willing to sanction a loan move for him in the second half of the season. He's not had all too many first-team opportunities since making his move over from Oxford in the summer. Reportedly so, Blackpool were lining up a deal for the defender whilst Michael Appleton was in charge, so whether or not they go ahead and pursue with that deal now McCarthy's there waits to be seen. Along with Blackpool, there has also been interest from both Hull City and Sheffield Wednesday in taking the defender for the rest of the season. Recent reports are claiming that Rotherham United have sealed the deal for Jordan Hugill on a potential 3.5-year deal. Massive contract they're giving out there to a player who's about to turn 30. But in terms of Hugill, we spoke about the interest from several Championship clubs last time. It seems as if Rotherham have won the race for the forward. Certainly a player who I think will be a real fit into the way that Rotherham like to play. Hugill, massive physical presence up front, but also fairly mobile as well, can get about the pitch, and considering some of the other Championship clubs who are said to be interested, this one could turn out to be a massive capture for Rotherham and seriously boosts their survival chances. But guys, there we have it. That will wrap it up for today's video. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and any other rumours that you've seen floating around recently, make sure to get them in the comments down below. Apart from that guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.